Our final presenter is James McCullough. James is the CEO of Renalytix. He has extensive leadership experience in building emerging life sciences companies. Renalytix itself is disrupting kidney care with the diagnostic that is shifting the focus from kidney disease to kidney health. So James, come tell us about it.
Thank you, Kelvin, and thank you for including Renalytix in this presentation. We're honored to be here in our home state of Utah, and I'm sure I'll see a few people skiing up at Park City tomorrow. And Kelvin, this is quite as close as I get to a TED Talk, I think. This is a hell of a stage. We're all about driving preventative care, and we're driving preventative care in one of the largest disease class in history, which is diabetes, and associated with diabetes is kidney disease, which drives the majority of cost in diabetes and obesity. And I don't know if, just to give you an idea of how big this is, kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, these are chronic diseases which largely follow obesity and diabetes. And if you've all seen the recent report from the Obesity Federation, they're now calling for 50% of the world to be overweight or obese by 2035, 50% of the world. So when we look at the challenge going forward over the next couple of decades, the next 100 years, around cost, dealing with outcomes, lowering patient suffering, we can start to track these disease classes. These are the big challenges going forward, is how do you manage chronic disease? So we have an in vitro diagnostic. It's a blood-based test. It has a machine learning algorithm associated with it. It was spun out of Mount Sinai Health System and Joslin Diabetes Center. And it identifies people who already have diabetes and already have kidney disease, which is a population in the United States that probably approaches 20 million people, already have diabetes and already have kidney disease, who are most likely over the next couple of years to have kidney failure or significant reduction in their kidney function. And we catch them early. And if you can identify these people early, you can treat them. There are drugs available, there are new drugs available, there are clinical treatment strategies, there's all sorts of things that you can do. And the benefit is these people are going to live happier lives, they're going to be substantially less costly to the healthcare system. Many of them will not end up on dialysis. And dialysis is the treatment for kidney failure, and today in the United States, 50% of the people who end up on hemodialysis, that's the classic dialysis where you sit in a lounge chair and you have your blood filtered and cleaned. 50% of the people who end up on dialysis in the United States do it through the emergency room. Most of them never knew they had kidney disease. So this is a preventable disease. We have to be able to identify people early. We can treat them and we can prevent a lot of the disease progression, suffering, and costs that goes along with that. So this is Renalytix. Just quickly on the journey, it's been quite a journey. We started in 2019. We decided that we were going to go straight for the public markets. And that was a desire based on the availability of capital. So we launched Renalytix at a development stage on the London Stock Exchange, actually what they call the junior market over there. And we ended up raising just about $27 million as our first round of funding from a dead stop. We subsequently went through another round of funding, ended up cross-listing on the NASDAQ in those go-go days when stock markets were doing great and banks were not failing. Yes, lots of smiles in the audience, especially those public company CEOs. It's such a joy these days. But we ended up raising an additional $85 million in the cross-list. And today, we've been capitalized to the tune of about $170 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but when you're generating real-world evidence, we're going to be doing it through FDA, and you're addressing a population in the United States which exceeds 40 million, in the world which exceeds 850 million and growing. And we're really setting a new standard for early-stage disease prognosis, risk assessment. Who do you have to treat and who don't you have to treat? It costs you a fair amount of money to do that, to generate the evidence, to be able to get into the guidelines, to get through FDA, et cetera. So we are at a tipping point right now. We are finishing up an FDA process under de novo marketing authorization. We have published some fascinating real-world evidence about the use of our product, which is called KidneyIntelX. in large healthcare systems, and we'll share that in a minute. And we are largely through the initial phase of commercialization, and we're now looking at a national expansion and then eventually an international expansion. So how big is the problem? We talked about it a little bit in terms of obesity. Kidney disease follows obesity. Today we have about 40 million Americans who currently have chronic kidney disease. And the cost associated with this is absolutely enormous. Roughly 20% of the Medicare budget is spent on about 5% of Medicare beneficiaries who have end-stage kidney disease. It's incredibly costly. JAMA just published an article for the first year alone in dialysis for private insurance. It's over $200,000 a year. For Medicare, it's $88,000 a year. This is for a preventable disease. If you catch it early, we have drugs to be able to treat it. So the cost associated with not understanding who is progressing, not understanding who is at risk, they already have diabetes, they already have kidney disease, so we're not screening. These are patients with existing disease. The cost associated with not identifying those patients and treating them with drugs we have is completely unaffordable. And this actually has spurred a lot of change in government policy in 2018, 2019, so we've come along at the right time and the right place to be able to give primary care physicians the tools necessary to identify people who are at significant risk. And this is all about preventative care. All right? The vast majority of patients, over 90%, who have kidney disease and diabetes are in early stage disease. And I come out of cancer. The last precision medicine diagnostic that we developed is in prostate cancer. And the bad news is all the men sitting in this room will eventually get prostate cancer. The good news is most of the time it doesn't matter. And a lot of the times you don't get it until much later on in life. And you're going to die of something else, probably old age, before prostate cancer makes a difference. So it becomes very critical when you've been identified with prostate cancer, are you a fast progressor? Does it make a difference? Do we have to have more significant interventional treatment? Or can we watch and wait? Or does it ultimately not mean anything? The same is true in kidney disease. 95% of the patients who have kidney disease and diabetes are in the early stage. And the question is, does it matter? This is population-based disease. You can't treat everybody. You can't aerial spray 40 million Americans with chronic kidney disease with new drugs. We bankrupt the system. So the key is to get in early, identify the patients who are at risk, and then we can treat them before they move on. The problem is, who is it? We don't know. They all look similar. And for the physicians in the room, here are 5 patients, and we see this all the time. They have similar values for GFR, UACR. These are classical measurements, blood tests and urine tests, which have been around for decades and decades. And the problem is, with those tests, you really can't understand at an early stage where the drugs make the most difference, the clinical interventions make the most difference. You can't understand at an early stage whether you're looking at a high-risk patient or somebody you should send home and see next year. That's where KidneyIntelX comes in. And actually, thank you. Just briefly, chronic kidney disease and diabetes disproportionately affects African Americans, Hispanic populations. This is a huge health equity issue. And access to care, access to diagnosis and prognosis is absolutely critical, not only for cost control, but it's the right thing to do. So we're operating in a space that needs to be operated in, and we can make a difference. So KidneyIntelX is a simple blood test where we can go into populations early and identify quickly, just a standard blood draw. We're looking at 3 proteins that are circulating in the blood. And we're also adding additional information from the patient's electronic health record system, which is readily available. These 2 disparate information pieces come into a machine learning-enabled algorithm. It's a random forest algorithm. I'd never worked with machine learning before until KidneyIntelX. I will always work with machine learning going forward. The things that you can do with it are extraordinary. The big risk is, how do you validate that algorithm? And how do you generate something that can be quality controlled and run through a regulatory process and be paid for by an insurance company? In the case of KidneyIntelX, this has been extensively validated. We now have Medicare pricing, Medicare payment, Blue Cross Blue Shield payment. We have a whole sequence of insurers that are now paying for this. And we end up with a very clear, actionable report. And it's actually very simple because we're aiming this at the primary care physician, and it provides a measurement for the primary care physician of low, medium, high. And if you're high risk, by KidneyIntelX, you have a greater than 2/3 chance of experiencing kidney failure or a significant decline in your kidney function over the next 5 years. But that could occur as early as 6 months. It could occur next year, or it could occur in 5 years. We don't know. But if you score high by KidneyIntelX, you are highly likely to experience kidney failure or kidney decline. Good news is, again, we've caught you very early. And in fact, KidneyIntelX provides this risk score independent of stage and grade, which are traditional measurements. So we can catch somebody very early on and put them on medication or give them new clinical strategies. Conversely, if you score low by KidneyIntelX, you have a greater than 93% chance of not progressing over the next 5 years. So it provides this baseline risk assessment, which any primary care physician can do without additional training, and you can understand, is this patient sitting in front of me high risk, or can I let them go home? And here are the results. When we've deployed KidneyIntelX in large healthcare systems in the United States, this is now published through thousands of patients, we understand that at the primary care level, a primary care physician is 4 times more likely to prescribe advanced medications. They're 3 times more likely to refer to specialists on a timely basis. And what we've also seen, which is absolutely fascinating, we didn't expect to see it this quickly, we're also affecting positively HbA1c, which is a measure for diabetes, and UACR, which is a measure for kidney health. So we're affecting biology and driving behavioral change at the primary care physician. This is exactly what we wanted to see. This is the utility equation, which is going to stop people from progressing. Broadly published, and at the moment, we're calculating that broad use of KidneyIntelX in populations with diabetes and kidney disease can start generating a return on investment for insurance companies and hospital systems in around 12 months. So it's a good bet to use this type of precision medicine in vitro diagnostic. Thank you. I'll stop right there if there are any questions. We've got 3 minutes. I did so good of a job, or it was not there? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
So an example of someone who went to the London Stock Exchange. That's pretty exciting, Jim. They're really transforming the way we look at kidney disease, and their FDA breakthrough designation is certainly a recognition of the novel technology they've developed to change lives.